Okay, so I am a physics grad student right now. My name is Sam, and I do a lot of coding. I've done a lot of it, I've gotten pretty good at it. And so I thought I would make a video just talking about how I started off coding and sort of talk about my journey in code, throughout the last few years. I want to talk about like when I first started. I'm going to be talking from the experience of myself, who is someone who did a physics major in undergrad and is going for a physics PhD right now. So that's sort of my perspective. Okay, so let's start way back. So back in high school is really my first coding experience, which I'm going to go through this really fast because it doesn't even mean anything really, because it didn't really have any effect on my coding sort of journey experience. Just something that I remember. I thought I'd share. In high school, they did a little like coding workshop thing. I don't even remember the coding language that we used, and I barely even know what we did. I can't even remember. I just remember like little pictures in my mind of like being at a computer and like doing a little code, but it's like I can't barely even remember it. But that was a thing. I wish they did that more in high school. That was the only time code was ever mentioned in high school, and I think it would be cool if high schools did that more, because coding is such a huge thing in the world. So many people get into it, and it's such a I don't even think about it a lot, but it's like it's everywhere. Coding is everywhere in our websites, in our computers, in all the programs we use. And it's just like the fact that it's barely mentioned, at least in my school, that's weird to me, at least. But, anyways, I don't even remember anything really. And by the time I really got started in coding, it had no effect on me because I still had no idea what I was doing with coding. Anyways, let's move on to the next experience, which was in college. Early on, I had to take a lot of math classes. For some reason, they had these like math lab classes that they required us to use Mathematica for. And I know that Mathematica is like a great tool. A lot of people would tout it as being this wonderful, amazing tool, and I'm sure it is. I kind of hated it because I was forced to use it and I didn't want to use it. I didn't see the point of using it, and they kind of had us figure everything out on our own. They had these really badly worded and long sort of lab manual things, and it was just they really made me hate it, and so that didn't help. So there's nothing against it, but that class kind of made me hate it. So I didn't start out well with coding, but I guess I didn't think of Mathematica as much of like a programming language that I sort of thought of when I thought of programming languages. But that was my second experience, and again, it really had no impact on me other than kind of, not liking Mathematica. It's probably a great programming language, but that's just a little thing. But I'm going to move on because honestly, it doesn't matter. Then at one point, and again, there isn't much here because it's just like there wasn't much to it. I was a big player of like Minecraft and stuff when I was younger, and I always wanted to make a game. And so, the fact that one man, originally at least, made that game, and I thought, oh, it'd be so cool if I can make a game like that. And so I remember trying to learn how to like make a game, but I didn't get very far at all, and I got very discouraged. I think because I realized I didn't really want to make a game. I think I just liked playing games. I didn't really have much motivation to make a game. So it wasn't until much later, until like my second year in undergrad, that I actually had a really good motivation to learn to code, which was research. It was the summer after my second year. I've talked about this a little bit in other videos on my channel, just talking about my research experience, what I regret, what I don't about it, and how it's sort of impacted me. The summer after my second year that I started research, and it was a sort of high energy physics based data analysis sort of research just at my university. And so it was my first experience with coding. Like I had no prior experience other than like the things I just mentioned, of course, but those really had no impact on me. This was really my first experience. I had no clue what I was doing. I barely even knew the first thing about coding, really, at that point. And I was starting research, and it was just like, I was so, maybe get over my head a little bit. So yeah, that's kind of how I started out, not really knowing what I was doing. And I was also starting research for the first time, so I really didn't know what I was doing with research. So, I was trying to figure out how to like operate like the Linux, command line environment. That was very confusing at first. And, learning how to do C++, at least with what I had to do. The thing about research and like starting coding when you're doing research is like you kind of learn what you need to learn in order to do your research. So I really didn't learn that much, actually. I really just learned what I needed to learn in order to do my research. So overall, it was a learning curve, very much so. There was months of just not having too much progress and just like learning a lot of coding, essentially. But that's okay. I eventually finished my project. I mean, it took until I graduated, really, to actually finish my whole project. But so much of that first summer was just sort of learning, asking a ton of questions from my research supervisor. He helped so much. There was like hundreds of emails. Like I had over 100 emails just in one like email chain. Looking back, I'm like, I really, like, there's so many things that I could have just used the internet or figured out on my own. So that's something I learned, is just like utilize the internet. And also, if you can't figure something out, or if you don't know how to do a certain thing, like just play around until you figure it out. Like that's one of the best things. If you can't find an answer on the internet, just like type away, make a little program, and see if you can figure it out on your own. That's what I've found actually is really helpful. Now, I'll be honest, I did struggle quite a bit in the beginning of my research, and it took me a while to really get comfortable in coding and to actually make some big progress in my research, because I spent so much of my time in the beginning just learning how to code that, it would have helped to take a class before, or try to at least learn some coding before I started research. So I am a strong believer in starting research as early as you can, with or without the, what you think is the required experience. It's like you're an undergrad, you're not going to have a lot of experience or any. For specifics, for my research, I had to learn how to use like the Linux command line, a little bit, and also C++ and a thing called root as well. They use in particle physics. It's like a particle physics software used for like data analysis, a lot of big particle physics experiments. You just sort of use with C++. And so that was my experience at first. And so learning a bit of C++ really. And then later on, sort of my research was like basically started then the second summer, and then all the way till I graduated. So within that, I was also taking classes which utilized Python. And so I learned a ton of Python as well, sort of during my research, I guess, sort of within that same time frame. And I should also say, starting research is a really good motivator for learning to code. It's just like, I think I've tried a few times to learn to code on my own, and it just didn't go well because I didn't know what to make. I didn't know what to work on, I didn't have anything. I was just on my own at home, like at my parents' house, trying to like learn how to code. But I didn't really have a vision for what I wanted it to be or what I wanted to do. I needed something to like do. But it's like, for me, it was like, okay, eventually it was like I was doing research. So it's like, oh, I can learn to code, and then I can practice it on programs that I'm going to use in my research. And then eventually, when I was learning Python in my classes, I had homework assignments to do and just in-class activities that I could use to improve my coding abilities. So I had something to help me learn. It's something to like code, like little programs that I could make, that would help me learn. I guess this is what I'm trying to say. And then, so I should talk about my physics classes, because I was thinking about it. I think I've taken like 5 classes or something, that I think it was like 5 that involved coding. I took 2 that were like really heavily, or like 3 actually. There were like 3 really heavily based, Python based sort of physics, math classes. Like I took a computational physics class, I took a data analysis methods class, both physics classes, and I also took a numerical methods class. And they all like heavily involve coding. And 2 of those classes were like from my department. And then also there were 2 other classes. It was like classical mechanics and like thermal statistical physics. Both had coding components to them. We were working with like Python, like Jupyter notebooks, spreadsheets and things, which was nice to have those, components to those classes, because I actually ended up learning quite a bit in those classes. I really liked that my department really, aimed to heavily emphasize coding in the classes. Really helped me. And I think the reason why I'm so good at coding, I'd say now, is because of that. And so that was really nice. I am very glad that I took those classes. So it was really kind of luck, I guess, that I ended up going to a school that involved a lot of coding. So this helped me. This is sort of part of my journey. I mean, of course, I should be more specific about what I mean by coding. Like, I mean, I name dropped some programming languages. I was doing things like data analysis with Python, and obviously my research was data analysis and sort of trying to code my research. I don't really know how to describe it, but 2 of my classes were focused on coding numerical methods into Python. and sort of applying those to physical problems. And so that was mainly what I was doing. And like sort of just, yeah, analyzing data and data analysis methods class was like, well, analyzing data with Python and like spreadsheets sometimes. And so that was kind of what my experience was and kind of what I'm good at now, which is good because I don't need to know how to code a website or make a game, because I need to know how to like analyze data and, maybe apply some numerical methods or whatever, physics, math based physics research, because I'm going to be doing physics research. I am doing physics research. And so those are useful skills for me. So my professors taught me so much with coding, so much they taught me. There's so much I learned. I do not regret it at all. I really hated using other people's code, like in computational physics. It's like I could use the code provided by the author of our textbook. The author provided, Python code, but I always opted to write my own. One, because I always hated using other people's code, because I always just want to write it the way I want to write it, and so I would understand it more easily. But also it's a good experience to write your own code. Like I think I took the class because I wanted to learn how to code better and stuff. I wrote a lot of code in that class, and it was great. It was really awesome, and I think I definitely recommend writing your own code because it's actually really fun. And it was part of why that class was so fun, just going from the ground up to nothing, from nothing to having a whole program that like solves some crazy problem with a numerical method or multiple numerical methods, and like just seeing that it works. The project I had to do in that class was just from the ground up, using a method that I didn't really know how to use, and then I figured it all out. It was like, oh, it was so satisfying. But here I am now in grad school, and I am really glad that I had the experience with coding that I had, and I'm glad I learned all the things I learned. At the beginning of this year, 2020, quarantine time, I took the chance I got really bored, and so I was like writing programs. I remember our internet was acting up at home because I was at my parents' house, and I was like, I'm gonna write a program that like does like pings and stuff and tries to diagnose what's going on wrong with our internet. That was pretty fun. That was pretty interesting. So that was fun to make a little program like that. And I wrote some other smaller programs. I may have wrote some related to some videos I made on this channel. I can't really remember, honestly. I'll have to look back. But I made some programs that I didn't need to make, but they were kind of fun little projects. I didn't have much else to do. It definitely helped, I would say, improve my skills. So that's essentially all I have to talk about. From my experience of coding, there's probably some things I forgot, but that's sort of the main journey, the main story. And now I'm doing physics research with simulations and stuff, and hopefully I will end up doing more. But it's definitely helpful, my experience that I've had, making me be able to do the research that I'm doing now. And I'm sure I will do all sorts of more research in the future. But that's all I have for this. I hope you enjoyed. Hope you related to this. If you have a similar or different experience, if you want to leave that in the comments, that'd be cool. I'd love to read it. If you want to subscribe, if you like the video, subscribing is a thing you can do, and it's very easy. So if you want to do that, go ahead and like the video. Press the like button if you want, if you liked it. But yeah, that's all I have for this. There's some other videos I've made on my channel if you want to check those out. And yeah, that's all I have. I should probably stop procrastinating things I need to do. I'm on Thanksgiving break right now, but I'm doing homework. So I should probably do that. Bye-bye.